So guys, one of the reasons why I like gold and silver is because it is an easy way to see why we have a money issue within the United States and honestly globally. We have an issue with just printing money and not having it keep up with the productivity of the given country that we're analyzing. And this can be looked at through the GDP deflator. Even though it's not perfect, you can kind of see it even within the CPI. You can definitely see it in asset price inflation. And one of the types of asset price inflation that you can take a look at are the assets of gold and silver. And over time, you can see that prices have definitely risen. Let's take a look at all the data that you can see here. Just above, this goes back to the early 70s. This is probably around $30 or so, $35. It's gone from that point to almost, well, it has peaked above $2,000 within that period. Let's take a look at silver. Silver has a different kind of trajectory, but it has gotten up to $50 in the start of the last decade. So you can definitely take a look at what inflation does to assets and what it also just does generally to prices. Now, this is something that a lot of us in the gold and silver space understand innately. And we see why that impacts the economy to the point where people talk about things like minimum wage or having a minimum wage or increasing a minimum wage. And we have to remember that when we get into these conversations, because we will unfortunately get into this left-right Republican Democrat debacle without keeping our eyes on the prize, which is just the sheer fact that the money is messed up. So I'm going to react to what Joe Biden says here about including the minimum wage in this legislation.
Look, our recovery plan also calls for an increase in the minimum wage at least $15 an hour. No one in America should work 40 hours a week, making below the poverty line. $15 gets people above the poverty line. We have so many millions of people working 40 hours a week, working, and some with 2 jobs, and they're still below the poverty line.
So you heard that. People are working 40 hours a week and barely making enough money, and they're below the poverty line. Well, is the problem the wage, or is the problem with cost of living and what inflation does to cost of living? And you have people like Peter Schiff who respond to this, and he says, tweets things like this: unless Republicans are willing to argue for abolishing the minimum wage completely, they will lose the argument about raising the rate. If you agree that a minimum wage of $7.25 is good, it's hard to argue that $15 isn't better. I wish Republicans had the guts to tell the truth. Well, the thing about this, Mr. Schiff, is that I don't think Republicans even really understand what the issue is. And even if they do understand what the issue is, it is such a hard conversation to have, because you're striking at the core of how America has been operating. You know, we spend in order to cover our military expenses, and we spend to cover our programs that we have to support those who are down and out, unfortunately. And unless you're willing to reckon with that and to scale back those kinds of programs, there's no way that a Republican or a Democrat would want to solve the money issue, because it's helping out certain programs that they support. So when it comes to inflation and what it does to prices, which causes people to talk about the minimum wage, I want to actually show a graph that really brings it home, which is health insurance versus the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which is generally the index, for those who are new to this channel, that people refer to when they are referring to inflation. Now, this graph goes back to December 2005 and goes all the way up to December 2018. And basically what we can see here is that it kind of oscillates in the last half of the 2000s, but in the 2010s, as you can see here, the health insurance, cumulative prices, by the way, have basically been above CPI, and it's been growing ever since. And take a look at this paragraph down here, or the sentence down here. From the chart, we can see that the CPI increased roughly 27.7% from 100 in December 2005 to 127.7 in December 2018. During the same time frame, health insurance costs increased by 40.5% from 100 to 140.5. So yes, health insurance costs increase about 46% faster than prices in general. So when you go to your employer at the end of every year and you get your pay increase of about 2% because it keeps up with inflation, you should also remind them that, hey, health insurance goes up by 46% faster. I think I might need some higher pay, or at least some kind of averaging out here that's likely going to be above 2%. But here's the thing about the CPI and about health insurance. Take a look at this. Challenges to pricing health insurance. Even though insurance premiums are an important part of consumers' medical spending, the CPI does not directly price health insurance policies. And this comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics website themselves. So they're not even tracking that within the CPI. Take a look at national home prices versus the CPI. Now this goes and extends, or this goes back to the year 2000, and it extends to the year 2020. So now the CPI has gained, but going all the way back to the year 2000, home prices were, health insurance prices, remember, were kind of oscillating in the 2000s. Well, home prices have basically been above the CPI for this whole period, and they've been going up. And of course, we know in 2020, home prices have definitely gone up, obviously, due to monetary inflation that we saw through the $2 trillion of stimulus that we saw added to the system. And we saw it definitely added to home prices, and we saw it definitely added to asset prices like gold, like silver, and so on and so forth, the stock market. But take a look, home prices have gone up. So same thing, go to your employer and say, hey, home prices are kind of going up. Me and my wife want to go and get a home. We're thinking about that. Is there any way you can increase, my salary more than 2%? See what they say. But take a look at this. This is actually from economics, from Stack Exchange. So not the BLS, but take a look. Rents are included in the CPI because they are expenditures that are consumed in current period of time. But house prices are not, because they are expenditures on an asset to be consumed over many years. Another thing that we see here, and I'm going to leave this video, I'll leave you guys off with this point here. Syria floats new banknote amid soaring inflation. Now, Syria has a huge inflation problem, and they actually created this new banknote that is 5,000 Syrian lira. It went into circulation, I believe this Sunday, actually, yesterday, which is pretty insane. It's the largest denomination in the country, reeling from a decade of conflict and a crippling economic crisis. Syria's currency has been on a downward spiral since the conflict began in 2011. Trading that year in 2011 at 47 liras to the dollar, it's now officially up to trading at 1,250 liras to the dollar. Now, I wonder how many liras it takes to buy 1 ounce of gold, because we know that $1 or that we know that the dollar amount to buy 1 ounce of gold has skyrocketed this year. So I wonder how much that is for the Syrian lira. Maybe that's another reason why they had to up this price, because prices for assets, prices for goods, prices for services have all increased. And going back to the point of minimum wage is more about the money than anything else. So we have to keep the eye on the prize when it comes to these conversations and these topics. Otherwise, it'll just become and devolve into this left-right thing of you're evil because you don't want to give people money, or someone saying you're just going to kill jobs if you raise the minimum wage. What you have to start talking about is, why are we even talking about a minimum wage to begin with? Why are people struggling to begin with? Why are employers struggling to raise wages? What's going on in their back end with expenses and prices that they have to pay for in order to keep their business running? So guys, let me know what you think. I know it's going to be a hot button topic, so let me know what you think in the comment section below. Thanks again for watching. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe if you're new. It's Black Bullion for goldandsilvertoday.com.